My wife had a long-term dream of seeing the Northern Lights, and Iceland is one of the best places in the world to see them. But it's never a sure thing. A little research told us that traveling when the moon is waning in fall or winter was a good way to maximize our chances, because there were a lot more hours of darkness for the necessary conditions to line up. We chose Thanksgiving week of 2024 to take the trip. We learned a lot through the trip, and this is my unbiased view of the pros and cons of traveling to Iceland this time of year. One of the first benefits we encountered was lower costs. Because we were not traveling during the typical tourist season, prices for airfare, car rental, and lodging were all down significantly compared to the summer months. The lower travel numbers were largely due to the two biggest negatives, the short days and the cold weather. Our flight came in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and when we left the airport with our rental car around 8 o'clock, it looked like the middle of the night. Our first stop was to catch a glimpse from a distance of the recently erupted volcano at Sælingafell. However, that time was cut short because I simply wasn't dressed for the cold combined with the strong wind. Although the temperature was about 25 degrees Fahrenheit, the strong wind made it feel much colder. The sun didn't rise till 10:23 that morning of November 23, and it set at 4:04 p.m., which limits the amount of time to do daylight activities. And each day of the week there were about 5 minutes less daylight than the previous. Still, on days that were not cloudy, there was about an hour of twilight before and after the sunrise and sunset. However, the sunrises and sunsets were prolonged, producing light of a different quality that was hard to match. Even in the middle of the day, the light had that golden quality you experience in late winter afternoons in our Pennsylvania home. Returning to the subject of the cold, on our second day in Reykjavik, we experienced a remedy with the Sky Lagoon Hot Spring Spa. There you enter the geothermal heated water while still in the shelter of the bathhouse. The cold air on your face actually heightens the pleasure of the experience. In the middle of our time at the lagoon, we went up into the spa for what they call their 7-step ritual, which moves the customers from experience of cold and heat, beginning with a plunge into a cold pool, followed by the heat of the sauna, while looking out on the bay. Jumping ahead 5 days, we had a very different hot springs experience when we hiked up to the Reykjavik Hot Springs Thermal River. There, we were able to bundle up in layers so that the 3-kilometer hike to the site was not so bad, despite the 19 degrees Fahrenheit temperature and the wind. However, the brief period stripping down until we could enter the warm water was not so fun. As long as we were in the water, we were more than fine, but the chill hit when it was time to exit the water. And stripping out of our wet bathing suits, and with quickly numbing hands trying to get dried off and dressed with only a windbreak to protect us. It was an adventure to remember, so I don't regret it, but it would have been a lot more pleasant in a day that was 20 to 30 degrees warmer. We wished we had brought crampons for walking across the ice. Without them, we had to take a few detours off the path. During our time in Iceland, we also wished we had brought ice skates, as there were endless opportunities. If you love any winter sports, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, snowboarding, with a little research you will find opportunity in Iceland. When we left Reykjavik, we traveled north to the town of Arnistapi on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. The beauty of the rocky coastline was somewhat marred by the heavy cloud cover the day we were there and during our trip back south. This was also a factor when we were trying to see the northern lights that night. Iceland has a lot of cloudy days throughout the year, and this increases slightly in the winter months. Even on a cloudy day, the sun can break through, and even on a cloudy night, the clouds can part long enough to catch glimpses of the northern lights. Clouds continued the next day when we traveled down to Geysir on the Golden Circle, but cleared as the evening progressed. About 10 o'clock that night, at the house we had rented near Selfoss, it was clear and other conditions were right for us to have our greatest success catching the northern lights. The next day, Thanksgiving Day, we took a trip to the Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon, where we had booked a tour of an ice cave. The Vetna Glacier is the largest glacier in Iceland, covering 10% of the country. This is a unique experience that is typically only available to tourists mid-October through March. New caves open up each year, each one unique in the views it offers. The Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon is known to be a good place to see harbor seals, which can even be found in winter, though we did not see any. We did see a herd of reindeer. Throughout our time in Iceland, we saw many herds of Icelandic horses. However, in winter you will not see puffins or any types of migratory birds. It is also not a good time to book a whale-watching expedition, all of which can only be found in the warmer months. On our last evening, we went into the town of Selfoss to enjoy the Christmas lights and do some holiday shopping. In the morning, we returned to Reykjavik, where we said hello to some not-so-wildlife, and made our last stop at a bakery for that delicious fresh bread we had come to love, and to stop at some of the many shops in town. These pleasures can be enjoyed whatever time of year you travel. So these are just the pros and cons we observed, given our limited experience in the country. I would note that there are some transitional periods, such as late September or early October, where you might be able to enjoy some of the benefits while minimizing the negatives. Whatever time of year you travel, I hope you get out to this beautiful, amazing country.